I've always prided myself on being the rock of our family. From the early mornings juggling work and breakfast, to the late nights helping with homework, I've done my best to create a stable, loving environment for Sarah and our 2 kids. Our house, nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood, was my sanctuary, a place where I could unwind after a long day and watch my family thrive. This Saturday started like any other. The sun peeked through the curtains as I sipped my coffee on the back porch, enjoying the peacefulness before the day's chaos began. The scent of blooming jasmine from the garden mingled with the fresh morning air, creating a perfect backdrop for a lazy weekend. I glanced over at Sarah, who was bustling around the kitchen, preparing brunch. She always had a way of making our home feel warm and inviting, despite her sometimes abrasive demeanor. "Hey, love," I called out, giving her a reassuring smile. "Everything going all right?" She shot me a quick glance, her expression guarded. "Yeah, just trying to get everything ready," she replied, her tone clipped. There was an edge to her voice that I couldn't quite place, but I brushed it off. Maybe it was the stress of upcoming school events or something else entirely. As I finished my coffee, the kids started to wake up, their laughter echoing through the house. I took a deep breath, feeling content. Being a father and husband wasn't always easy, but moments like these made it all worthwhile. I glanced at the clock, plenty of time before the backyard barbecue we had planned for the afternoon. Little did I know, beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life, tensions were simmering. Sarah had been acting distant lately, more irritable than usual. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, choosing instead to focus on the happiness around me. After all, I believed in the strength of our marriage, in the foundation we had built together. But as the day unfolded, shadows began to creep into my sanctuary. Subtle changes, unexplained absences, and whispers of conversations left unheard. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. My confidence as the protector of our family was unwavering until the truth began to unravel, piece by painful piece. For now, I pushed aside my worries, determined to enjoy the day with my loved ones. Little did I know, the peaceful facade was about to crack, revealing secrets that would challenge everything I thought I knew about Sarah and our marriage. As the morning progressed, I immersed myself in the preparations for the backyard barbecue. I wanted everything to be perfect for our friends and family, believing that sharing joy would strengthen our bonds. The grill was cleaned and oiled, the tables were set with our best china, and I even managed to bake my famous apple pie, a recipe Sarah loved despite her often critical remarks about my cooking. Sarah, on the other hand, seemed distracted. Every time I glanced her way, she was either on her phone or hurriedly tidying up, her patience wearing thin. Her curt responses and dismissive attitude were out of character, but I chalked it up to the usual stresses of life. After all, maintaining a household with 2 energetic kids wasn't a small feat. Around midday, our neighbors began to arrive, bringing laughter and chatter that filled the air with a festive spirit. The children ran around the yard, playing tag and chasing butterflies, their joy infectious. I felt a surge of pride watching them, grateful for the life we had built together. However, amidst the celebrations, I couldn't ignore the lingering tension between Sarah and me. Her recent coldness gnawed me, making me wonder if I had unknowingly done something to upset her. Determined to address it, I decided to take a moment for myself, stepping into the house to grab a drink from the kitchen. As I poured a glass of water, I heard muffled voices coming from the backyard. Curious, I peeked through the window and saw Sarah standing by the patio, engrossed in a conversation with a man I didn't recognize. His features were familiar, though tall, with dark hair and the same confident demeanor I possessed. My heart skipped a beat as realization dawned on me. It couldn't be. This man was Jake, Sarah's ex-boyfriend. They had broken up years ago, and I had assumed their relationship was strictly platonic now. My mind raced with questions. What was Jake doing here? Was Sarah hiding something from me? I tried to steady my breathing, reminding myself to remain calm. After all, I was the protector of our family. Maybe Jake was just a friend visiting for the barbecue. But the nagging doubt wouldn't subside. I decided to give them some space, choosing to focus on greeting our guests instead. Throughout the afternoon, I observed subtle interactions between Sarah and Jake, shared glances, lingering touches, and whispered conversations that seemed too intimate for mere friendship. My confidence began to waver as the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together, painting a picture I wasn't ready to confront. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the backyard, I felt a growing unease. The barbecue had been a success on the surface, but beneath it lay the unsettling truth that threatened to dismantle everything I held dear. My protective instincts kicked in, urging me to uncover the reality behind Sarah's strange behavior. As the evening progressed, the initial warmth of the barbecue began to wane, giving way to a more subdued atmosphere. The laughter of friends and the chatter of neighbors still floated through the air, but I couldn't shake the growing tension that seemed to envelope our backyard. Every glance in Sarah's direction revealed a flicker of something unsettling, an unspoken secret lurking beneath her forced smiles. After the last of the guests had departed, the children were tucked into bed, and the house settled into a peaceful silence. I decided to finally address the gnawing unease that had been plaguing me all day. Taking a deep breath, I approached Sarah, who was now in the kitchen, sipping a glass of wine with an air of indifference. "Sarah," I began, trying to keep my voice steady, "can we talk for a minute?" She looked up, her expression immediately hardening. "What is there to talk about, Alex?" she snapped, her tone dripping with irritation. "Everything's fine. Why don't you just relax for once?" I felt a sting at her dismissiveness but pressed on. "I couldn't help but notice you and Jake seemed close today. Is everything okay?" Her eyes flashed with annoyance. "Jake? He's just a friend. There's nothing wrong with that." Her words were sharp, almost cutting, and I could sense the defensiveness in her posture. "Maybe you're just being paranoid." Paranoid. The word echoed in my mind, and I struggled to keep my frustration in check. "I'm not being paranoid, Sarah. I saw the way you two were interacting. It doesn't seem like normal friendship to me." She rolled her eyes, a gesture that only fueled my suspicion. "You're overreacting, as usual. Maybe if you weren't so controlling, I wouldn't have to deal with Jake constantly hovering around." Her accusation hit me like a punch to the gut. Controlling? I took a step back, trying to understand where this was coming from. "I'm not trying to control you. I just want honesty and transparency in our marriage." Sarah scoffed, her patience wearing thin. "Honesty? Is that what you call spying on me? Maybe you should focus on your own issues instead of trying to police me." Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and Jake strode in, a smug grin plastered across his face. "Hey, Alex. Just thought I'd drop by and see how things are going." My heart sank. Jake's presence was like a dark cloud overshadowing our already strained relationship. "Jake," I greeted him coolly, masking my unease. "What brings you here?" He shrugged nonchalantly. "Just passing by and thought I'd help out. Sarah mentioned you might need an extra hand with some repairs." I glanced at Sarah, whose eyes darted away, her discomfort palpable. "Thanks, but we've got everything under control." Jake chuckled, oblivious to the tension. "Sure thing, man. Let me know if you need anything." As he moved towards the garage, I felt a surge of protectiveness surge through me. Something wasn't right, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. Watching Jake leave, I turned back to Sarah, who was now visibly agitated. "You two need to sort this out," I stated firmly, my voice leaving no room for argument. She shot me a venomous look. "Sort what out? There's nothing to sort, Alex. Maybe you should mind your own business for once." Frustration bubbled within me, but I restrained myself. Arguing further would only escalate the situation. Instead, I chose to observe, to watch and wait for the truth to reveal itself. Little did I know, the coming days would peel back the layers of deception, exposing the raw wounds of betrayal that lay hidden beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect marriage. As I retreated to the living room, my mind raced with questions and doubts. How had things spiraled so quickly? What was Jake's true intention, and why was Sarah behaving so strangely? My confidence as the steadfast protector of our family was being tested like never before, and I couldn't help but wonder if I would emerge from this ordeal stronger or shattered beyond repair. That night, sleep eluded me. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, each one more unsettling than the last. I lay awake in our bedroom, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments of the day. Sarah's defensive attitude, Jake's sudden appearance, and the lingering tension in the air all pointed to something I couldn't quite grasp. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to keep a closer eye on them in the days to come. The next morning, I woke up early, the house still cloaked in the soft hues of dawn. I quietly made my way to the kitchen, hoping to catch Sarah before she started her day. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a small comfort amidst the growing storm. As I poured myself a cup, I overheard Sarah on the phone, her voice sharp and terse. "Look, Alex is being unreasonable again. I just need some space." The words hit me like a physical blow. Space? What did she mean by that? My protective instincts kicked in, and I knew I had to act carefully. Accusations without proof would only push her further away. Instead, I chose to monitor their interactions, hoping to find concrete evidence of whatever was transpiring behind the scenes. Days passed in a blur of suspicion and anxiety. I watched as Jake continued to linger around the house, always finding some excuse to stay a little longer than necessary. Sarah's demeanor grew increasingly hostile, her once warm smiles now replaced with curt nods and dismissive gestures. The atmosphere at home became thick with unspoken tension, each of us navigating our roles in this strained dynamic. One afternoon, as I was working in my study, I noticed Sarah and Jake outside in the backyard. They were talking near the garden shed, their body language uncomfortably familiar. My heart pounded in my chest as I debated my next move. Should I confront them directly, or wait for undeniable proof? My confidence as the family's protector urged me to act, but doubt not at my resolve. Unable to resist the pull of curiosity and concern, I decided to investigate further. I grabbed my jacket and headed outside, keeping a casual demeanor as I approached the backyard. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the lawn. I could see Sarah and Jake laughing, their closeness unmistakable. "Hey, you two," I called out, forcing a smile. "Need any help with the garden?" Sarah shot me a look of pure disdain, her eyes flashing with irritation. "We're fine, Alex. Just working on some things." Jake nodded in agreement, but his smirk told me otherwise. "Yeah, just getting this area ready for the party next weekend." I felt a surge of frustration but maintained my composure. "All right, just let me know if you need anything." As I turned to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The interaction felt forced, their smiles masking a deeper, more troubling connection. I retreated to the house, my mind racing with questions and doubts. That night, unable to contain my worries, I decided to set up a discreet camera in the backyard. If there was something illicit going on, I wanted to have the proof I needed to confront Sarah. Setting up the camera was a quiet, solitary task, each click of the device heightening my sense of unease. The following morning, I reviewed the footage with a mix of apprehension and dread. There, clearly visible, were Sarah and Jake meeting in the backyard after dark. Their interactions were intimate, far beyond the bounds of mere friendship. My heart sank as the reality of their betrayal crystallized before me. Determined to protect my family, I knew I had to confront Sarah with the undeniable evidence. The thought of facing her, of hearing her lies and excuses, filled me with a mixture of anger and sorrow. But as the protector of our home, I had to muster the strength to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As evening approached, I prepared myself for the confrontation that was inevitable. My mind was a storm of emotions, betrayal, hurt, and a desperate need for answers. I couldn't understand how the woman I loved, who had been my partner through thick and thin, could betray me so openly. Yet, I knew that addressing this head-on was the only way to salvage whatever was left of our shattered marriage. The evening air was thick with anticipation as I stood in the living room, clutching the printout of the camera footage. My heart raced, each beat echoing the turmoil inside me. I had rehearsed this moment countless times in my mind, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of facing Sarah with the undeniable proof of her infidelity. Sarah entered the room, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. She looked radiant in her evening dress, her hair perfectly styled, and her makeup flawless. It was the same Sarah I had fallen in love with, the one who had promised to cherish and protect our family. But today, that Sarah seemed different, distant, almost defensive. "Alex, what's going on?" she demanded, her voice laced with irritation. I took a deep breath, summoning all the courage I had. "Sarah, we need to talk." She raised an eyebrow, her expression turning cold. "About what? You're already overreacting as usual." I stepped closer, holding up the printout. "This isn't overreacting. I have proof that you and Jake have been seeing each other behind my back." Her eyes narrowed, and she scoffed, dismissing the evidence. "Oh, please. That's just a silly camera trying to ruin your day. Jake is a friend, and we were just talking." "Talking?" "The footage shows more than that," I countered, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You're so paranoid, Alex. Always thinking the worst. Maybe if you weren't such a controlling husband, I wouldn't have to deal with Jake's constant presence around here." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Controlling? I'm trying to protect our family, Sarah. I thought we were partners. She rolled her eyes, her demeanor turning boorish. Partners? Is that what you call spying on me and accusing me of cheating? Maybe you should focus on being a better husband instead of acting like a jealous fool. I felt my confidence waver, but I refused to back down. I'm not acting like anything. I'm demanding honesty and respect in our marriage. Her expression twisted with contempt. Honesty? You want honesty? Fine. Yes, Jake and I have been spending time together. But it means nothing, okay? You're just too insecure to see that. Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and Jake walked in, a smug grin on his face. Well. Looks like I caught you two in the middle of something interesting. My blood boiled. Jake, what the hell are you doing here? Jake chuckled, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Just thought I'd drop by and see how my old friends are doing. Sarah stepped between us, her posture defensive. Jake, maybe you should leave. This isn't your business. He shrugged, leaning against the doorway. All right. But it's clear there's some tension here. I felt a surge of protectiveness, my role as the family's guardian kicking into overdrive. Jake, I don't know what your intentions are, but stay out of our lives. He smirked, unfazed by my anger. Whatever you say, Alex. Just remember, Sarah and I go way back. As Jake exited the house, Sarah turned her gaze back to me, her eyes filled with a mix of defiance and disdain. See? He's just trying to stir things up. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, you'd have no reason to worry. I felt a profound sense of betrayal, the foundation of our marriage crumbling beneath me. I trusted you, Sarah. I believed in us. She scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Trust? You have nothing to trust anymore. Maybe it's time you faced the reality that our marriage is falling apart. The room seemed to close in around me, the weight of her words pressing down. I had always seen myself as the protector, the one who would shield our family from any harm. But now, I felt exposed and vulnerable, my confidence shaken by the revelation of Sarah's deceit. As the night wore on, the tension between us remained palpable. The once warm and loving home now felt like a battleground, each of us entrenched in our own version of the truth. I retreated to my study, the echoes of our confrontation lingering in my mind. Questions swirled relentlessly. Was this the end of our marriage? Could I salvage what we had built, or was everything irreparably broken? Sleep was elusive once more, my thoughts consumed by the painful reality of Sarah's betrayal. I knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions that would shape the future of our family. As the protector of our hearth, I had to find a way to navigate this storm, to either rebuild or let go. But for now, all I could do was sit in the darkness, grappling with the shattered remnants of a life I had once cherished. The days following the confrontation were a blur of anguish and determination. I couldn't escape the image of Sarah and Jake together, their intimacy a constant reminder of the betrayal I felt. My confidence as the family's protector was wavering, replaced by a deep sense of vulnerability and hurt. Yet, amidst the pain, a stubborn resolve took root. I would uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Mornings became a routine of silent observations. I watched Sarah more closely, noting the subtle changes in her behavior. She was often dismissive, her patience thinned to a razor's edge. The kids sensed the tension too, their once cheerful chatter replaced by hushed conversations and lingering looks of worry. I hated seeing them affected by our turmoil, but I felt powerless to shield them from the growing storm. One evening, as I sat in the study reviewing the camera footage again, a thought struck me. If Jake and Sarah were meeting in secret, perhaps there was more to their relationship than mere infidelity. Determined to dig deeper, I decided to investigate Jake's background, hoping to find a clue that would explain his persistent presence in our lives. My search led me down a path I hadn't anticipated. Jake had a history of manipulating relationships, using charm and deceit to entangle those around him. Multiple sources hinted at his inability to maintain long-term commitments, often leaving a trail of broken hearts and shattered families. The more I learned, the clearer it became that Jake was not just an ex-boyfriend, he was a catalyst for chaos. Armed with this new information, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I confronted Sarah once more, this time armed with the knowledge of Jake's past. "Sarah, I did some digging. Jake isn't just some harmless friend. He's got a history of this kind of behavior." Her reaction was immediate and explosive. "Are you seriously trying to turn me against him?" "You're the one who can't let go of the past," she spat, her face flushed with anger. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with controlling everything, I wouldn't have to seek comfort elsewhere." I took a step back, the weight of her words pressing down on me. "I'm not trying to control you, Sarah. I'm trying to protect our family from someone who clearly doesn't have good intentions." She laughed bitterly, a harsh sound that cut through the tension. "Protect? You think you're protecting us? All you're doing is isolating me and making me miserable. Maybe if you had some backbone, I'd actually want to stay." Her accusation stung, but I refused to let her dismiss my concerns. "I'm standing up for what's right. I won't let you be manipulated by someone like Jake." Sarah's eyes blazed with contempt. "Manipulated? Don't be ridiculous. You're the one who's lost touch with reality. Maybe our marriage isn't what you thought it was." Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and Jake entered once again, his presence like a dark shadow looming over us. "Looks like the conversation's getting heated. Need any help, Alex?" My patience snapped. "Jake, I've told you to stay out of our lives. Leave now." He smirked, clearly amused by the confrontation. "Or what? You'll cry to the neighbors?" "Trust me, Alex, Sarah and I are perfectly fine." Sarah stepped forward, her demeanor shifting from defensive to confrontational. "Leave him alone, Jake. You're not welcome here anymore." Jake chuckled, undeterred. "We'll see about that. Sarah, maybe it's time we had a little more fun." Before I could react, he grabbed her arm, pulling her towards the backyard. My heart raced as I watched them disappear into the darkness, their silhouettes merging against the backdrop of our once peaceful home. The air was thick with anticipation, and I knew something was about to unfold that would change everything. Without thinking, I followed them, my protective instincts overriding my fear. As I stepped into the backyard, the sounds of their interaction became unmistakable. There they were, entwined in a passionate embrace, their actions leaving no doubt about the nature of their relationship. The sight was a knife to the heart, each moment etched with betrayal and disbelief. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice cracking with emotion. "How could you both?" They broke apart, startled by my sudden appearance. Sarah's face contorted with a mix of anger and shame, while Jake maintained his smug facade. "Alex, this isn't what it looks like," she tried to explain, her voice wavering. But there was nothing left to explain. The truth was laid bare before me, and the depth of their deception was undeniable. I felt a surge of rage, not just at their actions, but at the shattering of the trust one had placed in Sarah. My role as the protector felt like a cruel joke, as the very foundation I had worked so hard to build crumbled beneath me. As I stood there, grappling with the reality of their betrayal, I realized that the battle for our family's future was just beginning. The twists and turns of this painful revelation would test my resilience, pushing me to confront not only Sarah and Jake but also the very essence of who I was as a husband and father. The sight of Sarah and Jake entwined in the backyard still haunted me as I retreated to the safety of my study. My mind struggled to process the betrayal, each thought a jarring reminder of the life I thought we had built together. The weight of their deceit pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. I sank into my chair, the printout of the camera footage slipping from my grasp as tears welled up in my eyes. How had it come to this? I had always believed in the strength of our marriage, in the vows we had taken to support and protect each other. Sarah had been my partner, my confidant, the mother of our children. Yet here I was, facing the raw reality of her infidelity with someone I had once trusted. Determined to regain control, I wiped away my tears and straightened my posture. I couldn't let their actions define me or tear apart the family I held so dear. Taking a deep breath, I decided it was time to confront them once more, but this time with unwavering resolve. I walked back into the living room, where Sarah was glaring at me with a mix of defiance and contempt. Jake stood nearby, still looking smug despite the tension in the air. The children, sensing the gravity of the situation, remained huddled together in the corner, their innocent faces etched with confusion and fear. "Sarah," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside, "we need to talk. Now." She scoffed, crossing her arms over her chest. "Oh, here we go again. What is it this time, Alex?" I held up the printout once more, my hands trembling slightly. "This isn't a joke, Sarah. I saw you and Jake together. What's going on between you two?" Her eyes darted to Jake, then back to me, a flicker of panic crossing her face before she masked it with anger. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. Jake is just a friend, and so am I." Jake stepped forward, his grin widening. "Yeah, Alex. Don't let jealousy ruin a perfectly good friendship." I felt a surge of frustration. "Friendship? You were having sex in my backyard, Sarah. That's more than just friendship." Her face twisted with rage. "Don't you dare accuse me of that. You're the one who's being controlling and paranoid. Maybe if you had some backbone, I wouldn't need to seek attention elsewhere." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, interrupting our heated exchange. I glanced towards the front door, expecting one of our neighbors or friends, but instead, Jake seized the opportunity. "Looks like our guests have arrived. Time to mingle." He winked at Sarah before striding towards the door, leaving me and Sarah alone in the suffocating silence that followed. I took a step closer, my frustration boiling over. "Enough of your games, Sarah. Explain yourself." She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of sorrow and resentment. "Fine. If you want the truth, here it is. I'm leaving you, Alex. I can't stand living in this suffocating environment you've created. Jake offers me the excitement and freedom I need." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Leaving? After everything we've been through? After our children?" Her laugh was bitter and hollow. "Children are just another burden, Alex. I want to live my life, not be confined by your outdated notions of family and marriage." As the reality of her decision settled in, I felt a profound sense of loss and anger. "You can't just walk away, Sarah. We'll figure this out. Please, for the sake of our family." But she shook her head, her expression resolute. "No, Alex. It's too late. I've made up my mind." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, stunned and heartbroken. Jake lingered for a moment, giving me a final, contemptuous look before leaving as well. The room felt colder, emptier without their presence, and I struggled to steady myself against the overwhelming surge of emotions. Later that night, as I sat alone in the darkened house, the weight of Sarah's betrayal pressed heavily upon me. My role as the protector of our family felt futile in the face of such personal devastation. I replayed the events of the past few days in my mind, searching for signs I might have missed, for reasons behind Sarah's sudden shift. But amidst the pain and confusion, a flicker of determination ignited within me. I couldn't let this be the end. For the sake of our children, I had to find a way to mend the broken pieces of our family. Yet, deep down, I wondered if the damage was too severe, if trust could ever be rebuilt once it had been shattered so completely. As I lay in bed, the silence of the house wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket, I made a silent vow. I would fight to protect my family, to salvage what remained of our marriage, and to uncover the deeper truths behind Sarah's actions. Little did I know, the journey ahead would lead me down a path filled with unexpected revelations and challenges that would test the very core of my resilience. Tomorrow would be a new day, and with it, new opportunities to confront the lies, heal the wounds, and perhaps, find a way back from the brink of despair. But for now, all I could do was lie awake, grappling with the pain of betrayal and the uncertainty of what the future held. The days that followed Sarah's abrupt departure were a haze of numbness and despair. The house, once filled with laughter and the comforting sounds of family life, now echoed with an oppressive silence. I moved through the motions of daily life on autopilot, preparing meals for the kids, attending to household chores, and trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. But inside, I felt shattered, my confidence as the family's protector deeply wounded. Our children, Ethan and Lily, struggled to comprehend the sudden absence of their mother. Their innocent questions and tear-filled eyes broke my heart repeatedly. I reassured them as best as I could, promising that Mommy would return and that everything would be all right. Yet, deep down, I feared the worst. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, nursing a glass of whiskey to dull the ache, the front door creaked open. My heart skipped a beat, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe Sarah had changed her mind, realized her mistake, and decided to come back. But as I turned toward the sound, my hope was swiftly crushed. There stood Jake, leaning casually against the doorway, a smug grin playing on his lips. His presence was like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over the remnants of my broken heart. Well, Alex. Fancy seeing you here. I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my emotions in check. What are you doing here, Jake? He took a step forward, his eyes gleaming with mischief. Oh, just thought I'd check in. See how you're holding up since Sarah left. My jaw tightened. She left because of you, Jake. Get out of here. Jake chuckled, clearly enjoying the tension he was causing. Come on, man. Don't be like that. We're all friends here. Before I could respond, the kids peeked around the corner, their curiosity piqued by the unexpected visitor. Ethan tugged at my sleeve, his eyes wide with concern. Daddy, who's that? I forced a smile, trying to mask my anger. Hey, guys. This is Jake, an old friend of Mommy's. Jake gave a friendly nod, but his eyes lingered on me with an unsettling intensity. Nice to meet you, Ethan. And Lily, right? Lily nodded shyly, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Hi, Jake. Seeing their innocent faces, a pang of protectiveness surged through me. I knew I had to handle this delicately. Jake, why don't you go back to your place? We've got a lot to figure out here. He shrugged, undeterred. All right. Just thought I'd stop by. Let me know if you need anything. As Jake turned to leave, Sarah's voice echoed from the hallway. Jake, wait. I froze, my heart pounding. Sarah stood at the top of the stairs, her expression a mix of anger and desperation. What are you doing here, Jake? He glanced at her, a sly smile forming. Just having a little chat with Alex. Sarah took a step forward, her eyes darting between Jake and me. Alex, I need to talk to you. I felt a flicker of hope, wondering if perhaps Sarah had reconsidered her decision. But something in her tone told me otherwise. Not now, Sarah. Maybe later. She shook her head, her frustration evident. No, Alex. We need to settle things once and for all. Before I could respond, Jake interjected, his voice dripping with false concern. Looks like there's some unresolved tension here. Maybe we should all just take a step back. I sensed the underlying tension, the unspoken agenda Jake always seemed to carry. Jake, please leave. This is between me and Sarah. He gave a mock salute, his eyes never leaving mine. Sure thing, boss. I'll be out of your hair. As Jake exited, Sarah turned her attention fully to me, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and contempt. You think you're so perfect, don't you? The ideal husband, the protector. But all you've done is push me away. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm despite the turmoil raging inside me. Sarah, I never wanted to push you away. I was trying to protect our family. She scoffed, her voice rising. Protect? Is that what you call monitoring my every move, controlling who I interact with, and making me feel suffocated? No wonder I needed to find someone who actually understands me. Her words cut deep, each one a dagger to my already wounded heart. I did it for us, for our children. I wanted to create a stable environment. She stepped closer, her demeanor shifting from accusatory to confrontational. Stable? Or boring? Maybe if you loosened up a bit, we'd still be happy together. I felt a surge of frustration, my protective instincts battling with the pain of her betrayal. I gave you everything, Sarah. How could you throw it all away for someone like Jake? Her laugh was bitter and hollow. Jake? He's nothing like you, Alex. At least he knows how to live. Before I could respond, the lights flickered, and the room seemed to grow colder. I glanced around, sensing something was wrong. Suddenly, the backyard floodlights illuminated the house, casting harsh shadows through the windows. My heart raced as I realized what was happening. Through the glass, I saw Sarah and Jake moving towards the backyard once more, their actions deliberate and unashamed. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had been played, manipulated not just by Sarah, but by Jake as well. Their alliance was more sinister than mere infidelity. It was a calculated move to destabilize my life. Sarah, stop! I shouted, my voice cracking with desperation. What are you doing? But she paid me no heed, her attention fixed on Jake as they made their way to the backyard. I rushed to the window, my protective instincts igniting into full-blown fury. Without thinking, I grabbed a flashlight and headed outside, determined to confront them once and for all. The backyard was bathed in the harsh glow of the floodlights, revealing the intimate scene unfolding before me. Sarah and Jake were entwined on the patio furniture, their bodies moving in sync with a passion that belied any pretense of friendship. The sight was a brutal confirmation of my worst fears, each movement a testament to their deceit. Enough! I shouted, stepping into the yard with the flashlight held high. This ends now. They broke apart, startled by my sudden appearance. Sarah's face contorted with a mix of anger and shame, while Jake maintained his smug demeanor. Alex, this isn't what it looks like, Sarah tried to explain, her voice wavering. But there was nothing left to explain. The truth was laid bare before me, and the depth of their betrayal was undeniable. I felt a surge of rage, not just at their actions, but at the realization that Sarah had allowed herself to be so easily manipulated by Jake. Jake took a step forward, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent. Looks like we've caught you right in the act, Alex. What are you going to do about it? I stood my ground, the flashlight casting a harsh light on their faces. I'm done being your pawn, Sarah. And as for you, Jake, stay away from my family. She glared at me, her voice dripping with contempt. You think you can just walk away, Alex? You thought you could control everything, but look where it got you. Before I could respond, the sound of sirens pierced the night air. Panic flashed in Jake's eyes as he glanced toward the street. Looks like the police are on their way. Time for me to go. He grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her toward the house. Come on, Sarah. Let's get out of here before things get messy. As they fled into the shadows, I was left standing in the backyard, the weight of their betrayal heavier than ever. The sirens grew louder, a stark reminder that their actions had consequences. I watched as the police cars arrived, their flashing lights illuminating the chaos that had erupted in what was once my sanctuary. One of the officers approached, his expression sympathetic yet professional. Is everything all right here, sir? I nodded slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. No, officer. My wife is cheating on me with my ex. He glanced toward the house, sensing the tension in the air. We'll need to take statements from both of you. As the officers began their investigation, I felt a mix of relief and despair. The truth was finally out, but the cost was unbearably high. My role as the protector had been exploited and shattered, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a life that no longer felt whole. That night, as I sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the echoes of betrayal reverberated through every corner of my being. The twists and turns of recent events had left me reeling, questioning everything I once held dear. But amidst the darkness, a flicker of determination remained. I vowed to rebuild, to protect my children, and to reclaim the life that had been torn apart by deceit and manipulation. The aftermath of the police's arrival left me in a state of numb disbelief. As the officers took statements from Sarah and Jake, I sat quietly in the living room, the weight of their betrayal pressing heavily on my chest. The room felt colder, the walls echoing with the remnants of our shattered trust. My role as the protector had been violently undermined, leaving me to grapple with a profound sense of loss and confusion. Once the officers departed, I was left alone with my thoughts. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the house settling. I couldn't fathom how things had deteriorated so rapidly. Just days ago, we were preparing for a barbecue, sharing laughter and creating memories. Now, everything had unraveled in a matter of moments. Determined to find some semblance of normalcy, I decided to focus on the immediate needs of my family. The children needed stability, and I had to be strong for them. Ethan and Lily, sensing the tension that enveloped our home, clung to me with their innocent eyes, searching for reassurance that I couldn't fully provide. That evening, I attempted to broach the subject with Sarah, hoping for some clarity amidst the chaos. "Sarah, we need to talk about what happened," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She looked up from her phone, her expression a mix of anger and defensiveness. "What is there to talk about, Alex? You saw what happened." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I just want to understand why. Was it something I did?" Her eyes flashed with irritation. "Of course not. It was your incessant need to control everything. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with protecting this so-called family, I wouldn't have sought comfort elsewhere." Her words stung, each one a dagger to my already wounded heart. "I did it for us, for our children. I wanted to create a stable environment." She scoffed, pushing her phone away. "Stable? Or boring? You call this protection, but all you've done is isolate me and make me miserable." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, jolting us both from the tense conversation. I walked over to answer it, hoping it was one of our neighbors offering support. Instead, I found Jake standing on the porch, a smug grin plastered across his face. "Hey, Alex. Just thought I'd drop by," he said, his tone dripping with false concern. I felt my blood boil, the sight of him reigniting the anger and betrayal that still festered within me. "What are you doing here, Jake?" He shrugged nonchalantly. "Just wanted to see how you're holding up since Sarah left." I clenched my fists, struggling to maintain my composure. "She left because of you. Get out of here." Jake chuckled, clearly enjoying the tension he was causing. "Come on, man. Don't be like that. We're all friends here." Before I could retort, Sarah stepped forward, her demeanor shifting from defensive to confrontational. "Jake, why don't you leave? You've done enough damage." He raised an eyebrow, unfazed by her hostility. "Damage? What damage? We're just having a conversation." I took a step closer, my protective instincts kicking in. "No, Jake. You've been causing nothing but trouble. Leave now." Sarah joined me, her voice laced with irritation. "He's right, Alex. We don't need him here." Jake sighed dramatically, placing a hand on his hip. Fine. But don't expect things to go back to normal overnight." As he turned to leave, I felt a surge of frustration. "This isn't over, Jake. You haven't seen the last of me." He paused at the door, a sly smile playing on his lips. "We'll see, Alex. We'll see." With Jake gone, Sarah let out a heavy sigh, her shoulders slumping in exhaustion. "Why do you keep allowing him to influence everything? He's toxic." I shook my head, feeling the futility of the situation. "I don't know what else to do, Sarah. I thought confronting you was the first step." She looked at me, her eyes softening for a brief moment before hardening again. "Maybe it's time you realized that some things are beyond your control." The conversation hung in the air, unresolved and tense. I retreated to my study, the familiar surroundings offering little comfort. My mind raced with conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. How had our marriage, once so strong, fallen apart so completely? Determined to find answers, I decided to seek professional help. A therapist could provide the guidance we desperately needed. The next morning, I made an appointment, hoping it would be a step towards healing. As I left the house, the early morning sun casting long shadows on the pavement, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much longer and more painful journey. The path to redemption and understanding seemed fraught with obstacles, each one more daunting than the last. Back at home, the children awaited me with their usual morning routines, oblivious to the undercurrents of tension that ran through our lives. Ethan chattered about his school project, while Lily clung to her favorite stuffed animal, seeking comfort in its softness. I smiled at them, masking the turmoil within. "Good morning, kids. Ready for another day?" They nodded eagerly, their innocence a stark contrast to the complexities of adult relationships. I took a moment to observe them, drawing strength from their unwavering trust and love. They were the heart of our family, the reason I had to keep fighting, no matter how bleak things seemed. As the days turned into weeks, therapy sessions became a regular part of our routine. Sarah was reluctant at first, her defenses still firmly in place. But slowly, the walls began to crumble, revealing the pain and frustration that had driven her to seek solace elsewhere. One evening, after a particularly challenging session, Sarah approached me with a hesitant look in her eyes. "Maybe we can try to work through this, Alex. For the sake of the kids." I felt a flicker of hope, a small light amidst the darkness. "I'd like that, Sarah. I really would." But just as things seemed to be taking a tentative step towards healing, another twist emerged. I discovered that Jake had been spreading rumors about our family in the neighborhood, painting me as an overbearing and controlling husband. The lies he spun were insidious, creating a wedge between us and our community. Determined to protect my family's reputation, I confronted Jake once more. "You've gone too far, Jake. Stop spreading these lies." He merely smirked, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent. "I'm just speaking the truth, Alex. Maybe if you weren't so perfect, people wouldn't be so quick to believe in your facade." His words fueled my resolve. I refused to let him tear apart everything we had worked so hard to build. With the support of our therapist and the unwavering love of my children, I began to counteract his false narratives, rebuilding our standing in the community one honest conversation at a time. Through the ups and downs, I remained steadfast in my commitment to protect my family. The journey was far from over, and the shadows of betrayal still lingered, but with each passing day, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path to healing was paved with challenges, but I was determined to navigate them with resilience and unwavering love. The weeks following Jake's persistent meddling were a tumultuous blend of hope and despair. Therapy sessions became a lifeline, each one peeling back the layers of our fractured relationship. Sarah and I sat side by side, our conversations teetering between tentative reconciliation and lingering resentment. Despite the progress, the shadows of betrayal still loomed large, casting doubt on every step forward. One chilly evening, as autumn leaves danced in the wind outside our window, I returned home from work to find the house unusually quiet. The kids were tucked in bed, and Sarah was nowhere to be seen. A sense of unease settled over me as I made my way to the living room, where I noticed a faint light emanating from the study. Curiosity piqued, I approached the door and gently knocked. "Sarah? Are you there?" There was no response. Concern mounting, I pushed the door open to find her hunched over her laptop, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. Her fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, and her expression was one of intense concentration. "Working late?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. She looked up, her eyes tired but defiant. "Yeah, just finishing up some notes for our next session." I stepped closer, noticing the multitude of tabs open on her browser, social media profiles, news articles, and several tabs labeled "Reconnecting with Jake." My heart sank. "Sarah, what are you doing?" Her shoulders stiffened, and she closed her laptop with a sigh. "Don't be paranoid, Alex. I'm just trying to stay informed." I felt a surge of frustration. "Informed about what? Why are you looking up Jake's profiles?" She bristled, her demeanor shifting from defensive to hostile. "Maybe I'm curious about what he's up to. It's not like you haven't been snooping around either." The accusation stung, and I struggled to maintain my composure. "I'm trying to protect our family from his influence. Why are you still involved with him?" Her eyes flashed with anger. "Protecting? Is that what you call this? You're the one who's been controlling and suffocating me. Maybe if you loosened up, I wouldn't have sought out someone who actually listens." Before I could respond, the sound of the doorbell echoed through the house. Both of us froze, the tension thick in the air. I moved towards the front door, heart pounding, wondering who could be visiting at this hour. To my surprise, it was one of our neighbors, Mrs. Thompson, holding a plate of freshly baked cookies. "Hi, Alex. I thought you might need some company," she said with a warm smile, oblivious to the turmoil brewing inside. I forced a smile, grateful for the distraction. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That's very kind of you." Sarah shot me a look of disdain, clearly irritated by the interruption. "Don't mind her, Alex. She's just being nosy." I hesitated, torn between gratitude and the nagging feeling that things were spiraling out of control. "Thanks again, Mrs. Thompson. I'll take a cookie." As Mrs. Thompson left, I turned back to Sarah, who was now glaring at me with a mixture of frustration and hurt. "We need to address this, Sarah. Your continued connection with Jake is tearing us apart." She crossed her arms, her posture rigid. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with controlling every aspect of my life, I wouldn't feel the need to reach out to him." Her words cut deep, each one a reminder of the trust that had been shattered. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect us from someone who clearly doesn't have good intentions." She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. "Protect? You think you're the only one being manipulated here? Maybe you're the one who's lost touch with reality." As the argument escalated, I felt a mix of anger and sorrow. The woman I loved was slipping away, her bitterness poisoning every interaction. "Sarah, please. Let's not do this right now. We need to find a way to move forward." Her eyes softened for a fleeting moment, vulnerability flickering beneath the surface. "I want to, Alex. I really do. But every time we try, something like Jake comes along and disrupts everything." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a notification, a message from Jake. My heart skipped a beat as I glanced at the screen. "Let's talk. We need to clear the air." A surge of anger welled up inside me. He wants to talk? After everything? Sarah shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Maybe he has something to say. Or maybe he's just trying to rile you up." I took a deep breath, striving to keep my emotions in check. "I don't trust him, Sarah. Whatever he wants, it doesn't concern us." She nodded slowly, a hint of resignation in her eyes. "I just think you should hear him out. Maybe there's something we can resolve." The conversation left me conflicted. Part of me wanted to shut Jake out completely, to protect my family from his influence. But another part, fueled by the hope of reconciliation, wondered if there was a chance to salvage what we had. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the words of our argument replayed in my mind. The path to healing was fraught with obstacles, each one seemingly insurmountable. But deep down, I knew I couldn't give up, not on Sarah, not on our children, and certainly not on the life we had built together. Determined to find a way forward, I made a silent promise to myself. I would confront Jake one final time, to lay everything bare and reclaim the sanctity of our home. It was a decision born out of desperation, but one that I felt was necessary to protect the family I loved so deeply. As dawn broke the next day, I prepared myself for the confrontation that awaited. The weight of betrayal pressed heavily on my shoulders, but my resolve remained unshaken. I was the protector of our hearth, and I would do whatever it took to defend it from the shadows that threatened to consume us. The decision to confront Jake once and for all weighed heavily on me. Every fiber of my being screamed that it was necessary, a final stand to reclaim the sanctity of our home and protect my family from the chaos he brought. Yet, beneath that determination lay a storm of doubt and fear. What if this confrontation shattered whatever fragile piece Sarah and I were trying to rebuild? What if it pushed her further away? But I couldn't stand by and watch our lives unravel any further. With the support of our therapist and the unwavering love for my children, I knew I had to act. Tomorrow would be the day I faced Jake, to lay bare the extent of his manipulation and deceit. The morning sun cast a golden hue over our neighborhood as I prepared for the impending showdown. I dressed in my usual attire, simple, yet professional, hoping to project confidence and control. My children, oblivious to the tension brewing beneath the surface, chattered happily about their plans for the day. Ethan was excited about his science project, while Lily couldn't wait to show me the new drawing she had made. "Have a good day at school, kids," I said, ruffling Ethan's hair and giving Lily a reassuring smile. They nodded enthusiastically, their innocence a stark contrast to the complexities of my adult struggles. As I kissed them goodbye and watched them head off, a pang of vulnerability tugged at my heart. Protecting them was my foremost priority, and ensuring their emotional well-being amidst this turmoil was paramount. After dropping the kids off, I returned home to gather my thoughts. The therapist had advised me to approach the confrontation with a clear mind and unwavering resolve. I reviewed the notes from our sessions, reminding myself of the strategies we had discussed to maintain composure and assertiveness. By midday, I was ready. I had gathered evidence of Jake's manipulative behavior, records of his lies, instances where he had interfered with our family's reputation, and proof of his ongoing attempts to destabilize our lives. With these in hand, I felt a semblance of control, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. I decided to confront Jake at his workplace, believing that addressing him in a public setting would leave little room for his usual manipulative tactics. The sun was beginning its descent as I arrived at the office, the building standing tall and imposing. Taking a deep breath, I walked through the glass doors, my footsteps echoing in the spacious lobby. "Alex?" What a surprise! Jake greeted me with his trademark smug grin, leaning casually against the reception desk. I nodded, maintaining a steady gaze. "We need to talk, Jake." "Now." His smile faltered slightly, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. "About what? You look like you've seen a ghost." I held up the evidence I had gathered, letting the weight of it speak for itself. "This isn't a game, Jake. I've documented everything, your lies, your attempts to sabotage our family. Why are you doing this?" Jake's eyes narrowed, and he straightened up, his demeanor shifting from casual to defensive. "Oh, so now you're the authority on my actions? Maybe if you weren't so controlling, none of this would have happened." His words stung, but I refused to let him derail the confrontation. "I'm not controlling anything. I'm trying to protect my family from someone who clearly has no regard for our well-being." He took a step closer, invading my personal space. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? The ideal husband, the protector. But all you've done is create a suffocating environment that pushed Sarah away." His accusations hit a nerve, but I remained resolute. "I did what I thought was best for our family. Your interference has only caused pain and confusion." Jake laughed bitterly, a harsh sound that filled the space between us. "Pain? Confusion? Maybe if you had some backbone, you wouldn't need me to stir things up. Maybe Sarah wanted something more exciting, something you couldn't provide." I felt a surge of anger, my protective instincts igniting into full-blown fury. "Excitement? Is that what you think Sarah wants? She's a mother, a partner, she deserves respect, not your manipulative games." His smirk faded, replaced by a hardened expression. "Respect? From someone who spies on her every move and blames me for her unhappiness? You're the one who's lost touch with reality, Alex." Before I could respond, the office phone rang, cutting through the tension like a knife. Jake glanced at it, his expression momentarily softening. "Excuse me," he said, picking up the receiver. After a brief conversation, he turned back to me, his demeanor unchanged. "Seems like I have to take this. But don't worry, Alex. This isn't the last you'll hear from me." With that, he excused himself and left the office, leaving me standing there with a mix of frustration and determination. I knew this confrontation was only the beginning, but it was a necessary step towards reclaiming our lives. As I left his workplace, the cool evening air enveloped me, providing a brief respite from the heated exchange. My mind raced with thoughts of the next steps, how to further protect my family, how to support Sarah, and how to ensure Jake's influence was eradicated from our lives. Returning home, I found Sarah waiting in the kitchen, her expression guarded yet hopeful. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of concern and anticipation. I took a deep breath, the weight of the day's events pressing down on me. I confronted him. Showed him that I won't let him tear our family apart. She nodded slowly, her eyes meeting mine with a flicker of appreciation. "I'm proud of you, Alex. But we need to stay strong. This isn't over yet." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "I know. We'll get through this together. For the kids, for us." Her grip tightened, a silent affirmation of our shared resolve. "I want to believe that, Alex. I really do." As the night settled in, I reflected on the day's confrontation. It was a pivotal moment, a declaration that I would no longer tolerate Jake's manipulative tactics. But deep down, I knew that the battle was far from won. There were still secrets to uncover, lies to dismantle, and wounds to heal. In the days that followed, I remained vigilant, monitoring Jake's actions and documenting any further attempts to interfere with our lives. Sarah and I continued our therapy sessions, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. The path to healing was arduous, filled with setbacks and moments of doubt, but each small victory brought us closer to reclaiming our lives. One evening, as I was reviewing my notes, my phone buzzed with a message from Jake. "Let's settle this once and for all. Meet me tomorrow at the park." A chill ran down my spine. Was he trying to manipulate me further, or was there something more sinister at play? Regardless, I knew I had to face him head-on. Ignoring him was no longer an option. The next day, I arrived at the park, the familiar setting now serving as the battleground for our final confrontation. Jake was already there, leaning against a bench with that infuriating smirk of his. "So, you decided to show up," he remarked, his tone dripping with mockery. I squared my shoulders, refusing to back down. "Yes, I did. Enough is enough, Jake. I want you out of our lives for good." He chuckled, a bitter sound that echoed through the empty park. "Out of your life? That's a tall order. I'm not going anywhere until you admit that you played a role in your own downfall." His words hung in the air, a twisted attempt to shift the blame onto me. "I did what I thought was best for our family. Your interference only caused pain and confusion." Jake took a step closer, his eyes gleaming with a mix of malice and desperation. "Pain and confusion? Maybe if you weren't so rigid, Sarah wouldn't have sought solace elsewhere. You're the one who's been holding us back." I felt a surge of anger, my protective instincts igniting once more. Sarah made her choices. It's not my fault you manipulate her to your advantage. He laughed bitterly, shaking his head. Manipulate? Is that what you call it? Maybe if you had some backbone, you wouldn't need me to stir things up. Before the situation could escalate further, Sarah arrived, her presence a calming yet resolute force. "That's enough, Jake. Leave us alone." He turned to face her, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Sarah, maybe you should realize that you're happier with me." Her eyes hardened, her voice steady. "No, Jake. I'm happier without your manipulation. We're moving forward without you." For a moment, it seemed like he would relent, but then he took a deep breath, his facade slipping. "You think you can just walk away? You think you can erase everything?" I stepped forward, my resolve unwavering. "I think it's time to end this, Jake. For the sake of our family." He looked between Sarah and me, his expression torn. "Maybe you both need help. Maybe you're the ones who are broken." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving us standing in the park under the fading light of day. Sarah looked at me, her eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "Thank you for standing up for us." I nodded, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "We're going to get through this, Sarah. Together." As we left the park, the weight of Jake's departure felt like a small victory, a step towards reclaiming our lives from his destructive influence. But I knew that the journey ahead was still fraught with challenges. Healing from betrayal was a long and winding road, but with Sarah by my side and the love for our children guiding us, I felt a renewed sense of hope. That night, as I tucked Ethan and Lily into bed, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. The battles with Jake had been tough, but they had also strengthened my resolve to protect my family at all costs. As I turned off the lights and closed the door, I knew that the true test of our resilience was just beginning. In the quiet of the night, I whispered a silent vow to myself and to Sarah: no matter what twists and turns lay ahead, I would remain the steadfast protector of our hearth, fighting to rebuild the trust and love that had been so brutally shaken. The echoes of betrayal still lingered, but with each passing day, I felt more determined to overcome them and forge a future filled with hope and unwavering love.